My talk is all about developing reusable framework for XNA Game Studio 4.0. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to basically build a number of classes that are going to wrap the functionalities of XNA Game Studio. Initially, I started working with a framework, an open source framework, but it's halfway through, so I need to use a different resource in order for me to provide you with good information on how you could actually come up with reusable classes for your game applications. So I'm going to talk about creating the core components for your game. So it's like if you intend to, let's say, to write 50 games, and you're gonna come into like trouble of coming up with writing your code, similar code, no? So what you could do basically is to create a template, okay, that contains a number of classes that you could reuse, okay, in your application. So I'm going to talk about the some of the components that you should write for your games before you should actually start writing your games. And I'm going to discuss a number of screens that you could probably come up with in terms of the flow in your games. And I'm going to talk about creating classes that are going to wrap the inputs from the users when they touch the screen of your phone, or when they move your the phone. And then I'm going to talk about creating wrapper for music. Let's say when you click start and then you want to run a music. So instead of always writing a code that runs that, why don't you just come up with a class that you could actually call or use in your code, and just simply call a particular function or method to play a music. And also I'm going to talk about how to create a class that wraps the functionalities of XNA, so that you could provide sound effects for your XNA game. And obviously scoring. Alright, so in terms of core components, probably you would like to come up with a number of classes, including game host, game base, and sprite. So maraming components na pwede nyo isulat, no? But these are the basic components that probably you should come up with before you start writing your code. And we have the game host, no? So I was thinking about creating a class that wraps the game class of the XNA. So what happens there is instead of simply creating a simple class in the XNA project and inherits from the game class, why don't you create your game host, which basically inherits from the game class, so that any functionalities that you would like to write on the class that inherits from the game class of the framework, you could simply put that in your game host custom class, so that you could reuse that in your application. I'm going to show you how to do that a little later. Okay, and another class that you may want to create in your application is basically a game base. So this is basically a class that is going to be inherited from by all objects in your game application. So for example, yung method that was being mentioned earlier by Mark, like the raw method, you might want to basically place that function in a base class, so that you could simply override the method, right? And also the update, if you like to do that. Okay, so this is something that you should put in your game, no? This object. And the purpose of this object is basically for you to earn points and get redeem the sprite from Go. Just kidding. Okay. Alright, so what is the purpose of sprite? So in the past, wala namang 3-dimensional na games, right? So simply mga console or kaya mga 2-dimensional. And in order for us to move things around our game world, we have to create sprites, right? And Earlier, Mark mentioned about using the texture 2D, okay, which allows you to load the content, let's say a PNG file, and then display that to the screen through the sprite batch. And you could actually avoid yourself writing similar code, but if you would like to draw an object, to the screen by just simply creating a class, and you could probably call that class as a sprite, okay, which basically allows you to to create a number of objects that you could move around within your game world, okay. And that is not limited only to graphics. You can also create a font, okay, or text that loads a resource which inherits from this particular object. So in other words, if you like to draw an image, you could probably come up with a base class that would be doing all the loading, rotating, and then figuring out ano yung position niya, saka yung collision, right? So if you're doing games, very basic yung collision, yung paano nagdi-detect ng collision. So you could wrap yung mga source code, yung mga code mo dyan, mga functionalities into a single class called sprite, and basically you could inherit from it, and all of the functionalities are basically there. So all you need to do is basically override probably the draw method or update method, and then write your code to actually draw the image to the screen. Okay. All right. And one of the things that was discussed earlier was yung the way the XNA handles the input from the end user. And basically, what you could do is basically create a number of classes that wraps the interaction between your end users or the user of your game and the game itself. Okay, and you could create a number of classes, like for example input, which basically wraps all of the functionalities, that handles the touch of the end user, and also when you move the device. Okay, so that's one of the classes. And obviously, it was mentioned also about creating music, playing music, background music, and then sound effects, right? Pag nagkaroon ng collision, dapat may mga sound effects doon, right? So kung merong explosion, syempre magpapatugtog ka rin na nag-explode, di ba? So nag-create ka kasi ng illusion, right? Pero kung normal pa lang yung flow ng yung naglalaro lang ng game mo na yung user, tapos wala pang collision, syempre gusto mo mag-play ng music, ng background music. Okay. So, nakita ko dun sa music, sa background music, saka dun sa collision, yung sound effect, yung code mo doon, magiging redundant yan all over the place. So, what you could do is basically create a class that wraps the playing of the music, and a class that actually, play a sound effect for, let's say, for a collision. Alright? Alright. So, screens. Importante yung magkaroon kayo ng design for screens. Tapos, whatever screen yung i-display mo, dun mo ilalagay yung logic mo to actually play your game. And you could come up with a base class for the screen, okay, so that you can simply inherit from the base class name screen and use the abstract, yung mga similar functionalities like draw and update. All you need to do is to override, right? Now, probably the first screen that you would like to show to your end user is the title screen, correct? Title screen, and then showing how much, probably kung demo pa siya, sabihin mo, thank you for trying this this game and blah blah blah, and then meron sigurong button doon, di ba? Dun sa title mo, meron button to play the game or button to exit the game. Alright? And then you're gonna have your main menu. Basically the main menu is something that you could use in order for you to, let's say, probably to select anong level yung gusto mong umpisahan in the game. So meron ka rin in-game, that's basically the parang world ng game mo. Alright? And obviously, you need also another screen for game over. Alright? And kasi pag magdi-deploy ka ng game mo sa App Exchange, hindi naman automatic na pagkagawa mo, deploy, right? I-certify pa yan ng Microsoft, papa-review mo pa yan. So, dapat pinagpaplanuhan natin kung ano yung mga screens na we will make available to the users. And these are the minor, the basic screens that you should have in your application. Alright? Kanya, bakit kailangan natin gumawa ng mga screens? And because we're trying to avoid writing redundant code, we can actually create a number of classes that would represent all of these parts of our games. Alright, so many things have been demonstrated earlier in terms of using the classes of XNA. So let me deploy this project so that you would see there you go. So I have a game here called, it's basically a, medyo nahihilig ako sa kotse nowadays kaya ito yung pinili kong i-demo sa inyo. So if I'm going to play this, okay. So may collision doon, right? Hindi kasama yun kasi may yung touch screen ko na, oops, laro ulit tayo. Alright, so, and then may collision, etc. Okay, and then you can also when you're running this, actually nagpe-play ka din ng music. So let's try it again. Naririnig ba niya? Something like that. Narinig yung explosion, etc. And then meron siyang background music kaya lang mahina. So try natin lagyan ng speaker. Ito ba yun? Yung audio. Para lang ma-appreciate nila yun. Sorry. Alright, ulitin natin. Masyado malakas, no? Naan natin. The good thing about this kind of session, because we're talking about games, so just please. Actually, may background music to eh. Hindi piniplay niya. Alright. So, nakuha niyo idea? So, lahat ng sinulat nating code dyan, hindi ganun kalaki, no? Yung ibibigay ko sa inyo template, basically, ang pinakamalaking code dun yung pag-handle ng input from the end user, yung pag tinatouch natin, pag nililipat-lipat natin yung pinakamalaking code. But kapag naisulat mo na yon, you can basically handle the input from the end user. Alright? And thinking about a game that you could create, no? Meron ba kayo nakikitang game na pwede nyong gamitin na, gawin reusing the source code that I showed you? Meron kayo naisip? Isipin yung Iraq, no? Yung Abrams tank. Tapos meron nagko-cross na mga may hawak na natawag doon, may hawak ng RPG, di ba? So, pag nakita nyo pumapasok yung RPG sa daanan, bangkay nyo sasabog, right? Tapos pag may roadside bomb, kailangan na, alam mo yan, iwasan nyo. Kasi pag hindi, sasabog. Using the source code given by Microsoft. Anyway, so let me show you the number of classes that are working behind the scene. So first in the list, we need to have a class that actually handles the movement, no, of your object. And this particular project has a simple sprite class, and you could see three objects here that was demonstrated earlier. One is the vector2, and the vector2 is basically responsible for positioning your object. Anong part ng screen mo siya ilalagay. Okay? And number 2, yung texture 2D. Sabi kanina ng speaker natin sa designing a game. Let's start with because this is new technology for us. No, I'm a web developer talking about XNA game development.